How is everybody? Did you get your energy levels up? Are you maintaining good energy? Because you're going to need the energy for this week in order to get to the rewards according to the Rave Mandala. This is really important when we get to the solution slide, but in the meantime, Ego's got a little obstacle course to go through. So we're looking at September 21st through the 27th, 2023. Time is flying by. And you're going to want to stick to the end. We have a solution slide. I hope you really like the new format. I love it. Might indicate a little bit more work in the future, but I think this one's better. I can't wait to hear what you guys think. And then we have the runes. We also have a little future chart of our eclipse cycle that I want to go through. But anyway, let's start with our summary slide for the influence. I think when you put it all together, the Dreambot, the I-Ching, and the Tropical Astrology, we're looking at tripwires and traps. First of all, midweek, we've got the sun going into Libra, and he's falling into Libra. We'll talk about what that means. We have the first quarter moon, which is a little bit more expecting of, hey, let's get up and move. We need to move towards our Virgo goals, the Virgo goals that you hopefully put down last week with the Virgo new moon. We have a bunch of planets in retrograde. We have a lot of, the sun is in a grand Earth trine initially, and it sounds very grounding, and it is, but there's a lot of transformation, and there's a lot of power dynamics, and there's a lot of Uranus. But we're at the tail end of that grand Earth trine, so that's going to fall apart right as sun goes into Libra. And then you've got an inconjunct down to Saturn. There's limitations and challenges. So that's why we've got an ego obstacle course. And the I-Ching agrees with it, says stagnation. I think primarily it's those 5 retrograde planets that are in retrograde. The Dreambot looks at cycles. I think that's the indicative of sun moving into Libra and the first quarter moon, but illusions. And that's one of the alignments that the sun does have is an opposition to Neptune with an inconjunct to Saturn. So there's a lot of illusion, and the Dreambot's all over it. I think I got everything else except for the Venus square Jupiter and Uranus. That's a big one. Venus is feeling pressured to change, while Mercury is a trine to Jupiter. Venus is square. So Mercury, so mind and communication, home in Virgo, without any combust or any bad juju. We've got some good thoughts here coming, positive changes for brain, mind, communication, even short-term travel. So this is a high congruency score, by the way. Everything's really overlapped with each other. All right, let's get started. And I am happy to report John Doe with another win for the best comment, and just well-deserving. Talks about the age of Aquarius, and that's going to dovetail into what we talk about with the other cycles. I love looking at cycles and phases, and not arguably, we are moving into the age of Aquarius. The only argument is, are we already there, or is it sometime in the near future? And that's where the conflict is. Okay. But anyway, best comment goes to John Doe, and love these thoughts. I love all the comments. What great comments. What a great group of people. Great tribe we have here. All right, before we get into more of the astrology things, I want to just knock out the Dreambot here. Interesting run. We have days and Monday. Initialize, cycle, schedule, process, rhythm. All these red arrows are indicative of like a phases or a cycles and rhythms. Time being the big one. So I don't know if there's kind of an ending in time or a change in patterns of time. Don't know. We've been seeing time a lot in the Dreambots. So that's interesting. Collective unconscious is seeing a big theme of time. And then the blue arrows is a big meme having to do with just illusion, fantasy, reflection, twisting the plot or twisting the truth or whatever. And then we have the segmented arrows. It's more of like the opposite of illusion, which is knowing and deciding. That's kind of the opposite, but it's on that continuum. So I put it into the theme. Maybe the desire for knowing and the desire for deciding. Remember, Sun is opposing Neptune and in conjunct with Saturn. So it could be difficult to have the confidence in the knowing. All right, we're ready for the astrology. Now, remember these different phases. So we're in the micro phase, in the monthly, like 30-day cycle. We're in a Virgo cycle. So we have the Virgo new moon. And remember, these new moons that we've had in the past 5-6 months have been in service of bringing out your inner warrior, getting in touch with who you are as a person or as an entity. And this is no different. Virgo will be here to increase your chance of finding your inner warrior. We are barreling towards another full moon. So this little blue section is where we are in this CIRF report. And just after this week will be another full moon. I'm going to talk about that on our day-to-day things. You can just see the chart for the full moon, and the full moons are giving things up. It just so happens to be a full moon in Aries. Isn't that interesting? So the full moons are sacrificing, giving to the moon because it's full, and the fuller it is, the more it can take and vacuum up things. And so on our quest to increase our Aries inner warrior, we have accumulated maybe some bad things along with the attributes that are helpful. And so the metaphor is like bodybuilding or gaining weight. Not a lot of people want to gain fat. They only want to gain muscle with no fat. Well, that's impossible. To gain tissue, to gain weight, it requires both. You want to minimize how much fat you gain while you gain muscle. And then the same can be said when we try to lose weight. We only want to lose fat and no muscle. Well, that's impossible. To lose weight, you're going to lose both. You're going to lose fat and muscle. You just want to accentuate losing more fat than muscle. But so this is kind of the same thing when we have an Aries full moon coming up. All along, we've been trying to bring out better and healthier and stronger inner warrior. But of course, a little bit of the fat's going to show up with that. So this is our last chance, this full moon, last chance to shed, sacrifice, get rid of the parts that aren't helpful for your best, healthiest, strongest inner warrior. That'll be your last chance before the next eclipse. Now, I want to show you this. What's cool is we have a 6-month cycle in Libra. So pointing out things like justice and balance and harmony and peace. And the next cycle or the next eclipse is back to Aries again. Isn't that cool? April 8th, 2024. That's going to rip through the center to, like the center and I think east coast of United States is that solar eclipse, total eclipse. The Libra one's going to be an annular, meaning that the moon is a little bit further away and hence smaller apparent to us. And so it sees like a a glow from the sun on the outer edge of that circle. So anyway, exciting times. October 14th, you can put that on your calendar. That's the next eclipse. It's coming up shortly. And right now, as I said earlier, all the outer planets, the term outer planets is mainly Saturn through Pluto, and those are all retrograde. But the next planet closer is still out there is Jupiter. And so all these are retrograde and will be the entire week. And in the some of the following weeks. All right. Just overview, as I said before, there's that full moon in Aries, but that's outside of our CIRF week, as indicated by these vertical black lines. And so the big ones are, the big alignments anyway, are the Mercury trine Jupiter. Oh, that's goodness and really positive thoughts and outcomes even. We have Sun trine Pluto. It's very transformative for the ego and the self-identity. And then we have the Sun in conjunct Saturn. So that goes exact right about the time, within a few hours of the Sun going into Libra. All right, let's get started. A lot of this is consistent throughout the week, but I'll denote some of these changes. You can see going back to the obstacle course theme with the Sun. The Sun's obstacle course starts with the grand Earth trine, as I mentioned, because you have Uranus, big change agent, and you have power and transformation with Pluto. And so that's easy energy, easy to change and easy to transform. So there's already some kind of adaptation going on with ego, but it doesn't stop there. As I mentioned, starting from day one on Thursday, the 21st, you have Sun in conjunct Saturn. So the ego, the identity, has to adapt to challenges, limitations, etc. And then we have the opposition over to Neptune. So there's this balancing act of illusion, fantasy, or a versus. It's like one or the other with these oppositions. It forces ego to have to consider fantasy illusions, and that can be very challenging as well. And then we have all week Venus square Jupiter and Uranus. And so there's this pressure for relationships to evolve, improve, and change. Okay. And then we'll talk about Mercury trine over to Jupiter and eventually Uranus. All right. Here is the technical why did I put last quarter? This is the first quarter. That's a typo. It should not say last. It's the first quarter moon. Did I screw it up elsewhere? Hope not. The only quarter moon you'll see this week is the first quarter moon. All right, so that's an error there. We are okay. So on the onset of the first quarter moon, which is the right half of the moon is lit up, if you can see it at night. And this one is at 2:31 p.m. Central Daylight Savings Time. And it's initially in Sag, but it's going to transition into the achiever mode, the goal mode, the Capricorn. So the first quarter moon is going to phase into the goal-oriented thing. So that's really going to help, because remember, ego's not really all with us, especially once the Sun goes into Libra, makes it even more challenging. But thoughts are great. You've got the first quarter moon. And when we get into the solution, I think you're going to love seeing what the I-Ching says and the rave. So don't stop working, even though it's hard, because right now this is on Saturday, the 23rd of September. This is at 1:50 a.m. So deep in the night, middle of the night, daylight savings time, central time zone. Now you've got the sun in Libra, and the sun in Libra is in a falls into Libra. And the metaphor is tripping and falling into Libra, only because falls is indicative of not easy. It just makes things a little harder. And Mars, as you recall, we haven't talked a lot about Mars, but Mars being in Libra is in detriment, so is much weaker. So already you have the sun, which represents your identity, your ego, maybe your inner power, and then your outer power, or Mars, is more of your yang, your ability to get things done. And both of those are weakened. Fall and detriment denote things are harder for both of these. So, yes, I know getting things done, getting things organized and set up to get done is harder. But the first quarter moon says this is the time to get going. And I will show you a little bit how to do that. But in the meantime, we're on Saturday the 23rd, or at least you're in the middle of the night, you're going to start with sun in Libra. But that does make the sun, or your ego, desire peace more, desire balance. And that's where the problem is. The sun dominates because it shines so bright, and that's not really how we get peace. We don't force people to have peace, and so that's kind of where the difficulty is for both Sun and Mars. And but it doesn't mean that you don't want it. We're going to want a lot more peace. We're going to want a lot of justice. We want balance. We want to see the balance. We want to influence the balance. Things get harder. Sense of self is softened. It feels a little bit more vulnerable, not in a Cancer sort of way, but in a, this is not my specialty area, right? The sun is the type of entity that doesn't care what you think. It just does it. Well, that's not how we get to balance. That's not how we get to justice. It takes a softer approach. That's where the sun is not all that good at. Sunday, the 24th, this chart here is where I chose to bring, I could have done the conversion chart when the sun goes into Libra, because that denotes a big energetic change. But I looked at the rave, and we're still in the same hexagram. When we do the conversion chart, you're going to see the sun, when it goes into Libra, is in the same hexagram as when the next day, Sunday the 24th, when the sun makes a perfected exact climax of the inconjunct. And so maximum challenges with Saturn. Saturn more being limitations, challenges, obstacles, hurdles, etc. This is the obstacle course. This is the maximum of the obstacle course. And by the way, the Grand Earth Trine has officially disassembled. So now the ego is a little less grounded. So you have the Grand Earth Trine is leaving you ego much less able to really process things in the material sense. So that's gone. Then sun goes into a fall and into Libra. So things are just less easy. And then on top of that, at least on Sunday, well, all week you're going to have this inconjunct, but on Sunday is the climax, and that's at 10:09 p.m. So on Sunday evening, ego is in its biggest obstacle course here. And this is going to be our conversion chart. All right. Monday, the 25th, I want to highlight the benefit that Mercury has. Mercury is home. And so mental aptitude is great. There's no bad alignments at all. Did I just say bad? Well, that's not how energy works, but I think you get the idea. We have a trine. We have a double trine over to Uranus and Jupiter, 120 degrees. That denotes easy energy. So Mercury, that is full up, 100% home in Virgo, right in the middle of Virgo, no other alignments to pull from, is just feeling positive, optimistic, can see changes happening, can get really big insights from Uranus, can feel strong in that you don't really care about what other people think. That's a Uranus thing. So all these planets, Uranus, Jupiter, and Mercury, really combine for a super healthy mind, communicative, rational aptitude in self. Venus, on the other hand, is squared all week, and right in the middle of the Jupiter and Uranus square. This is a 90 degree, and this energy is a lot more pressurized. So finance can be in here as well as part of the archetype of Venus. Venus in Leo wants to bling bling and show, but relationships in general, passions will change. It's the pressure to change. And even though it's positive change, it's a really loose conjunction, Jupiter and Uranus, but it technically is a conjunction. So it's Jupiter and Uranus, positive change, but Venus, relationships are being challenged by that positive change. So spend time, I rarely say this, especially in ACT therapy, but in this week, mind and rational is good. Spending time in mind will be methodical, will be clarifying, rather than letting ego. And ego in this regard, you'll see ego show up with fear. When you feel fear, it's probably going to be an ego into all its obstacle course things. I would divert your attention more up into your mind and just think rationally. That's where the brilliance this week. It is a brilliant alignment of Mercury, trine, Uranus, and Jupiter. You got the low mind, the rational mind, trine over to wise mind. Yeah, Jupiter and Uranus are in retrograde, so we might be positively changing back to an earlier state. But it's very disruptive for relationships. So watch for that. On Tuesday, not really a whole lot of changes other than what I've already said. Wednesday, the 27th, the big change here is Mars in a detriment is squared off to Pluto. So now we got these big power struggles happening. Again, we got the outer power and we have the inner power. Pluto being not just transformative and destroyer, but power, denoting power and control. So squared off to each other is a pressure to be right, to be not be wrong, to not be accused, to control the other. So that's the energy. Now, here's the last thing I wanted to talk about is the full moon coming up. That is not Wednesday the 27th. This is the 29th at 4:57 a.m. And I want to give you just some basic information here because we are going to be early on the next CIRF report. It's only going to give you a couple days out. So we have, just real quick, we've got the full moon. We have the sun, starting with the sun in Libra, opposing the moon at 6 degrees, exactly 6 degrees Aries. So that's interesting. We'll look at the numerology next time. I just find it phenomenal that we have these exact numbers recently. Neptune is exactly at 26 degrees Pisces, outside of a conjunction with the full moon. And the full moon, remember, is the time to sacrifice. and you want to be sacrificing the things that no longer serve you. Great time to give up maybe some Aries kinds of things, Aries attributes that might be unhealthy for you, maybe some impulsiveness, maybe some selfishness in there. Again, selfishness is not automatically evil. There's an application for that. So if there's an unhealthy aspect or it's too exaggerated, well, that's an opportunity as well. Maybe a feeling of lost or not knowing self, or how about self-acceptance? Some of the most unhealthy Aries are the ones who really, really don't really accept who they are, or don't know who they are, so they can't. How do you accept something if you don't know what or who it is? So anyway, we'll talk a lot more about that full moon in Aries, but let's get back to this week. We have hexagram 12, stand still. We've seen this a lot recently, but sometimes as a solution. This one's the influence. So a standstill as an influence really looks, it overlaps with all the retrograde planets. It matches all the alignments with the sun. It matches this assembly of the grand earth trine. And by the way, I didn't mention that the grand earth trine will continue once Mercury progresses a little bit further and basically takes over the role that the sun had in the grand earth trine. That'll be for a few days in next CIRF report. In periods of standstill and stagnation, confusion and disorder can prevail, and mainly with ego. And this will translate into anxiety and fear if you let it. And so that's why I want you to go up to the earthy Mercury. I know that's an oxymoron because Mercury is also in an air sign with Gemini, but in a Virgo sense, it's very earthy, very practical, and you can just see it like it is. It's very accurate, very detailed. So go up into mind. Here's the line 6, top line. The period of stagnation is coming to an end. That's good news. The timing is right for direct action. Yeah, you mentioned that with the first quarter moon. We're at a check mark there. Disintegration does not automatically turn into peace and harmony. And Sun wants it in Libra, but it requires action of a strong person capable of shaping a new order. In such circumstances, great achievements are possible, particularly if fresh thinking results in new options that excite those who have been stuck. Now, that's the beauty of Mercury trine Uranus, especially with the Jupiter influence there, particularly of fresh thinking. That's the freshest thinking that I can think of as a Mercury trine or a Mercury conjunct Uranus Jupiter. They're all together, and this one's a trine. So you'll get new options, rational options. All right, here's the energy chart. And this is Sun's obstacle course, trip lines, traps, and tricks. Starts strong, but it really goes up to the Saturday, Sunday. I would say this is a missed chart. I think Sunday is even a little higher than Saturday. This is when the sun goes into Libra, and then on Sunday, this is when the sun makes an exact inconjunct with Saturn. So I think the line would actually be higher on Sunday, but still starts to crest over very slowly. And it's going to make its way all throughout Libra, but without all those other alignments. Okay. And that's why it starts to go down. All right. Before we go to the solution, let's start with summarizing the influence. Remember all the tripwires and traps. The ego's obstacle course is the influence. The Virgo backdrop starts to fade as the sun enters Libra at the first quarter moon. With the furthest 5 planets in retrograde, the energy is quite thick and confusing to navigate. Old problems and pesky frustrations continue. The grand earth trine breaks apart, which feels much less grounded, exposing the ego to challenges, limitations, and continued transformation. The bright spot in the week is Mercury, which can practically find the silver lining and see the positive changes happening in the material plane. So there you go. That's the influence. We'll get the solution ready, and you can already see the change in format. Hope you like it. Let's go back to, this has moved. Weird. Was it like that this whole time? Uh-oh. I hope not. All right. We have hexagram 45 gathering together. And looking down here, it is essential that precautions against unforeseen dangers be considered. When gathered together with others, we are more powerful. And remember, we're reading this in terms of solution, in terms of behaviors. Obviously, it's getting together with others, but any time of gathering together is a time of potentially great power. So we're going to perceive more power when we're together. Everything is magnified when masses of people join together for a single purpose. When many people unite behind a single goal or strong vision, it is wise to take personal precautions, protecting your reasonable self-interest, because these can be easily lost in the milieu of the crowd. And here's our conversion chart, because we're going to convert from tropical to sidereal, and on the way we're going to get the rave. The rave is 46, and that's where the sun is. A little bit after it hit into Libra, and when it goes exact in conjunct to Saturn, biggest challenges. Hexagram 46, we'll look at that, and a sidereal Virgo. We can finally use that hard work from previous weeks. So here it is. Pushing upward is 46. Good fortune that may be perceived as the result of serendipity, but derives from effort and dedication. Line 4 says impact. The good luck which comes from being determined that eventually in the right place at the right time leads to recognition. So that's the reward that is possible for ego this week. You just have to convince ego that you're going to be okay. Let's just keep on going. Keep on working. Let's go to 9. All right, here's our new chart. And instead of more text over here, we're replacing those with pictures. But plus, I'm adding the moon state, because each week we either have a first quarter moon, we have a full moon, last quarter moon, or a new moon, or an eclipse. And we treat those more as solutions, as behaviors, recommended behaviors. So I'm including that in the solution chart from now on. And I think that applies. So I think I was doing that anyway, but now it's official. All right, remember we have in our triangulation, which was what we're looking at, we have the picture of gathering together, and we're getting a lot more strength, and we're accentuating the power that you get from having a combined vision. And then we have pushing upward with impact. It means do not stop. Keep going. Keep pushing hard. And that's a direct match to Sidereal Virgo. Sidereal Virgo knows what needs to be done, knows what should be done, can go get it done, could be a workaholic. This would be a good week to be a workaholic, because we have the first quarter moon, which is accelerator down all the way. Let's start moving towards those tropical Virgo goals. We just happen to have now Sidereal Virgo to help us. How beautiful. So now is the time to go 200% on your efforts and dedication. The sun's placement mid-CIRF week brings great promises to an ego who could experience great challenges and limitations. So the promise being from the rave. The rave says, don't stop, keep going. You're going to have an impact if you keep going. All right. The watchword is perseverance, as your unending efforts will have a big impact. The rave says that hard work allows the obscure to have influence. You may even reach recognition. but never forget those who helped you get there. That's an important one. If you notice yourself, getting the fruits of working hard and reaching your goals this week, to the point where the rave shows up with recognition, make sure that you give credit where credit is due. If you don't, notice that if you're accidentally taking credit when you did get some help from others, that might be something to offer up to the full moon in Aries on the next CIRF report. This leads us to the I-Ching that advises us to gather together. The more effort you synchronize with your tribe, the more exponential output realized on that effort. What's really interesting is the I-Ching talks about vulnerability even when you're in your own group. When things are dangerous or stagnated, like the I-Ching said in the influence, such as now, we are more vulnerable, and that's as above, so below. Sun going into Libra sort of feels more vulnerable, feels like we've lost power, or we're trying to do, maybe clumsy is a better word, trying to do the Libra things from the sun's talents. It's very difficult. Make sure you're in the group that matches your values. First quarter moon says go towards the Virgo goals. Very important to look out for tripwires, traps, and what I-Ching calls dangers. And that's going to be the sun experiencing all those. The ego, the identity layer of self is going to feel these. So if you're in a state of fear, it's go back up into mind and really think about what's accurate, what's true. You can think rationally this week. And so you'll get your answers. You'll probably come out of fear in that case. And then you can just go back to working hard. Take things slow and methodical. That's okay. Try to think rationally. Don't do impulsive things. Certainly don't do things out of fear. Don't do things to resolve fear. Don't do things out of fear. Think rationally. Be slow. Be methodical. But just keep on going. All right. Now, wait, wrong one. We're up here. No, we're not. We're down here. All right. And then here's our runes. Runes are brought to you by Intervention Therapy. Go to intervention.com for inner peace. All right. Now in Urus, we've had this before, but it signifies strength, health, and power, energy, and endurance. Because when we're supposed to be continuing to go, work hard, endurance is key. And that's what Urus is for me. I'm going to conjure up extra strength, extra energy, extra endurance. And that should help, especially with the sun going into Virgo and all those other aspects. The challenges on ego is why I'm doing this. And then the why on the Tiwaz is like we've done in weeks prior. We're trying to accentuate finding the inner warrior. And that's what Tiwaz does. My watch words, my statement, my phrase is, I am unstoppable. I keep enduring as I wear the Urus and the Tiwaz on my beard. All right, that's it. Next week, we'll talk about that full moon. That'll round out the last of our current Aries eclipse cycle and a last chance to really refine that inner warrior and get ready for the Libra cycle. All right. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy and keep working hard. Take care, everybody.